We've been exploring the Humayun's Tomb complex in the previous two videos, and this one would be the last one. Of course, this is the main attraction, the central tomb around which the whole complex here is built. This is Humayun's Tomb, and it is one of the oldest examples of Mughal tomb architecture in Delhi. In fact, the Humayun's Tomb was also the inspiration behind the famous Taj Mahal. So you would actually get glimpses of the Taj Mahal when you look at the Humayun's Tomb. But of course, in reality, it should be the other way around. Looking at the Taj Mahal should give you glimpses of Humayun's, because this was built earlier than the Taj Mahal. And of course, as I mentioned in the previous video, this was built after Humayun's death in order to honor him by his wife. It's a beautiful morning here for the birds as well as the humans. And there you go, because Humayun's tomb is built to commemorate the dead. We'll see a lot of such graves and tombs throughout this complex. In fact, the Humayun's tomb is also sometimes referred to as the dormitory of the Mughals, because you'll find so many of these dead Mughals sleeping peacefully throughout the Humayun's tomb. Of course, all of these, or most of these, would be from the same timeline as Humayun himself. Humayun died in the mid-1550s, so most of these people that you see lying here and sleeping here, they were first put in these spaces around 500 years ago. And look at that beautiful design and the beautiful Arabic font that has been used. This one, probably looking at the size, tells me was a kid in the Mughal times. That's probably a couple that died close to each other. That has to be a family during the times of Humayun. And probably this has the husband and the wife and the 3 children, I would guess. I'm having second thoughts about my previous guess about that family, because I think our modern thoughts and concepts of a family might not apply to how families existed in the Mughal times, because that was almost 500 years ago. But yeah, it was some sort of family is what we can guess. Wow. Look at that beautiful view of the Humayun's tomb. Beautiful lattice work. And so many of them actually have different patterns from each other. This one has stars and lots of hexagons, as you can see. And Humayun, he actually died of unnatural causes. He died because he fell in his library not too far from here, and he died from those injuries. Here's another beautiful design, and for the last few minutes I've been trying to figure out what's the largest repeating unit within this design. This is so fascinating. Of course, you see the octagon prominently, but the largest unit is this pattern that you see right now. there are so many birds out here that the chirping is actually a little unpleasant, to be fair. It gets a little crazy. That direction is, of course, east. You can see the sun roughly in that direction as well. It's also where the train is. There's actually a train line and the Nizamuddin Railway station. I'm not sure if you can hear the sound of the train passing by. And of course, you can see more of these beautiful looking tombs right throughout the complex of Humayun's tomb. To my left, you would also see River Yamuna if you were visiting Humayun's tomb 200 or 300 years ago. Wow, look at that beautiful view, and of course the finial on the top. That's the highest point of the tomb. But yeah, right behind me you would have seen the river Yamuna pass by much closer to the tomb. And you might notice another little tomb in the distance right there. It is called the Neela Gumbad. There are some historical questions about it, but it's believed that it was probably built even earlier than the Humayun's tomb. I think I can still hear that train. Maybe it's a freight train. A freight train passing by the Nizamuddin Railway station. The Nizamuddin Railway station is named after a very famous Sufi saint, and he lived in the 1300s. He was called Nizamuddin Aulia, and the region around Humayun's tomb was actually the area where he lived, and he had tremendous influence. In fact, one of the reasons why the Humayun's tomb was built in the area where it's built was this most famous Sufi saint of Delhi. It speaks of the tremendous influence that Nizamuddin Aulia had not only in his life but even after his death, and it was considered extremely auspicious to be buried close to Nizamuddin Aulia, and hence you see the Humayun's tomb right here today in this very location. Wow. As you think of the intricate layered history of Delhi, also admire this beautiful intricate design right at the entrance of Humayun's tomb. So we'll talk about those layers of history in Delhi, but before that, let's walk around and explore this main building of Humayun's tomb, because this is extremely interesting and extremely fascinating. In fact, just at this main level, there are almost 100 graves in this building. Of course, those are just two. That's another of our beautiful lattice windows. You can observe the hexagons. Those are hexagons, right? Yeah, so there's the middle star surrounded by 6 hexagons. How beautiful, and of course how intricate. All this was done 500 years ago. There you can see this is the side of one of the graves. It has these beautiful engravings. And ever since I've started looking closely at these graves this morning, I've been wondering how amazing it would have been if I could read Arabic and if I could understand what's written on each of those graves. I would be able to get a wealth of knowledge then. But of course I cannot read Arabic. So now we are moving from one chamber to the other, and both of those shadows are mine. And it's absolutely fascinating to think about the scale of this structure, to imagine that just at main level, I mean the main level or the main floor that we are at, there are 100 graves. That of course is the main grave, that is Humayun's grave right at the center. And this central structure is built as an octagon, but if you look at the overall structure, there are also 8 other chambers surrounding this primary octagon, and they are also octagonal in shape. So there are a total of 9 such chambers, and of course there are different vestibules that are connecting these chambers. So it's amazing the scale and the complexity that went into designing this beautiful Mughal tomb. And of course this was one of the first great Mughal tombs which was built in India. Little does the pigeon know that it's sitting on the grave of one of the greatest Mughal rulers. And of course when I say that, I'm referring to the limited set of rulers who ruled India at that time, and they were the ones who formed the Mughal dynasty. So when you would come and experience this place, you would understand that the central grave, Humayun's grave, it's built in the most grand fashion. It's also probably the biggest, and I think that far end of the grave is where the head of Humayun lays. I'm not sure if it should be lay or lie. I think I could have used lie as well. Head lies in that direction. But I mean, lay and lie, it's a very complex mystery in the English language. Try to Google it, lie versus lay, and you will be puzzled. But of course, this is where the head of Humayun was. During my little bit of research about Humayun's grave, I also found out that his body actually lies in the sideways position so that his head can face in the direction of Mecca. So this is it, the grave of the man at the center of this all. This is Humayun's grave in the middle of Humayun's tomb. I think I just cannot get enough of these beautiful lattice windows. And it's also something to do with this bright and beautiful morning that we can also see the sun and the light on the other side, and we see these beautiful shadows. And of course we are now consciously noticing these patterns, right? The star surrounded by 6 hexagons. So there's one more detail about the graves that I should mention to you, and I will. Here's another one. So beautiful. This time a different pattern, of course. So about the graves, in reality, what you see here are just representations of the graves, because the graves are at a lower level. So as we move from one of the chambers to the other one, and we'll try to explore more of the graves within this main building, I do want to expand on my previous statement. Wow, and I think this is a particularly nice door, and also the chamber that we are getting into is a particularly nice chamber. I somehow feel that these graves, or these cenotaphs, which is the right word, they're like quite well maintained for some reason, which is good to see. But yeah, in reality, there's actually a level further down where the graves are present, and up here what you see are just representations. So these two are possibly the cenotaphs of maybe a couple, which was an important part of the Mughal court. They are the places where people would come and pay their respects, these cenotaphs are, but the actual burial happened at a lower level. Wow, I think this might be the best of them all. And it's still the same pattern, the star and the hexagons, or hexagons. I'm always confused between the American and the British pronunciation, but I'd like to call them hexagons. Of course, we see some wear and tear over the last few centuries. Remember, this place is 500 years old, and of course we cannot read that, unfortunately. This place is so amazing. I just feel that it's missing the context, it's missing the description of these graves and of these chambers. We are outside now into the bright and beautiful Delhi morning, but I feel my mind is still inside, still trying to make sense of the scale and the complexity of the views that we saw, the 100 cenotaphs, in fact more than that we observed inside. And as I was mentioning earlier, I feel our government and Archaeological Survey of India can really add so much more color and so much more context to what we see inside. Of course, these guys, these pups, don't really know that they are within the ruins of a civilization, within a monument which was built 500 years ago. So yeah, I think we are pretty much done with this beautiful Mughal monument, the monument that laid the foundation for a lot of the other architecture that was built within Delhi and within other areas in the Mughal times. As I mentioned earlier, I think my only suggestion would be that the Archaeological Survey of India almost converts this into a museum by adding so much more context and adding so much description of all the things that we see here. Anyways, I'm just somebody who's walking around and exploring, and this is it for this video. I'll catch you again soon. Bye.